In this video, I'll be describing the latest version of the Accu-Slot system, currently being marketed by Accu-Slice. The Accu-Slot system is used to produce Celtic Ring patterns and also to cut angles and boards on the bandsaw. I'll be describing the unique features of the system and then show how the system is installed on the Accu-Slice index table and then show the actual operation of the Accu-Slot system to cut and produce the Celtic Ring patterns on the bandsaw. In the second part of the video, I'll be demonstrating the cutting of the thin wood inserts on the Accu-Slice index table. The design and development of the Accu-Slot system began early in 2017, in which we posted a video on YouTube entitled Design and Production of a Bandsaw Jig for Making Celtic Rings and Celtic Knots. Using a router and other woodworking tools, we constructed the MDF table and wood fence for this Celtic Ring system. We mounted the MDF table onto the Accu-Slot with its roller bearings that ride on the Accu-Slice rail and table. This video was produced to develop the initial design and testing of the system and also give our viewers the opportunity to produce their own Celtic Ring system. Later in 2017, we produced a second YouTube video entitled Introducing the Accu-Slot Celtic Ring Jig. In this video, we demonstrated the aluminum prototype version of the system for producing the Celtic Ring patterns. We constructed a table from an aluminum plate which was 10 inches by 15 inches by 5/16 inch thick with an extruded aluminum fence. This Accu-Slot prototype version was then demonstrated at the 2017 AAW meeting in Kansas City. The system was then refined to produce the final version of the Accu-Slot system, which will be described in this video. The Accu-Slot system has several unique features. The main table is constructed from a 15-inch square by a 3/8 inch thick aluminum plate. Mounted at the bottom of this plate are 4 roller bearings that slide effortlessly and smoothly on the Accu-Slice rail. The table contains a slot for the path of the bandsaw blade. Another angular slot is milled into the table to enable you to adjust the angle of the fence. The table is black anodized to enable the easy viewing of the laser marked angles. On the bottom of the table is a Delrin plastic guide on the opposite side of the bandsaw blade. The purpose of this guide is to give additional support on this left side of the table and minimize vibration of the table. The fence is 2.5 inches wide by 22 inches long, constructed from aluminum extrusion, and to which can be mounted a number of clamps, stops, and other accessories. The angle of the fence can be adjusted from 90 degrees down to 20 degrees, and then clamped in place. The angles for the cut are clearly marked on the table, 1 degree increments and labeled every 5 degrees. A variety of clamps and spacers are available to enable the clamping of various sizes of wood blocks. Also on the fence is a stop, which can be moved and clamped in place. This clamp is used to set the position of the board or block of wood so that when you turn the board for subsequent cuts, the board will always be in the exact same position. Also included in the table are 2 handles to enable the safe pushing of the Accu-Slot system through the bandsaw blade. The system also includes a stop, which mounts into the Accu-Slice rail to limit the travel of the Accu-Slot system. This prevents the bandsaw blade from cutting through the board and into the fence. Another unique feature of the Accu-Slot rail is that the rail can be moved either to the left or right, depending on the dimensions and length of the board you're cutting. These two Allen screws are used then to tighten and lock it in place. The fence is constructed from the same rail that are used for our Accu-Slice system. Therefore, if the operator would ever require a longer fence for a larger project, the 36-inch or longer Accu-Slice rail could always be substituted. To install the Accu-Slot system, slide the table onto the Accu-Slice rail, guiding the 4 roller bearings into the side slots of the rail. Next, loosen the mag jig clamps and coarse adjustment knobs and position the table such that the bandsaw blade is approximately in the center of the slot in the table. And then lock it in place. Lock in the coarse adjustment knobs and also lock the mag jig clamps. Next, you need to check the bandsaw blade to make sure that it is perfectly perpendicular to the Accu-Slot table. It is very important that this angle is perfectly perpendicular to assure accurate cuts. This angle can be easily set by adjusting the tilt on the bandsaw table. Loosen the two clamps on the bottom of the bandsaw table, adjust the bandsaw table angle, and then retighten these clamps. After that's complete, make sure everything is locked tight in place. Your bandsaw blade is in the center. Your blade is perfectly perpendicular. Next, you need to adjust the angle of the slot you're going to make in your project. The angle for the Celtic rings can be adjusted at any angle from 20 degrees to 90 degrees. And that's just done by loosening the Allen screw and then changing the angle. In this case, I'm setting the angle to 6 degrees and then locking it in place with the driver. Next, you need to adjust the system so that the bandsaw blade does not go completely through the board you're cutting and into the aluminum fence. I normally use a scrap piece of wood between 100 thousandths and 1/8 of an inch thick. I use the spacer by positioning it onto the fence and sliding the Accu-Slot table so that the bandsaw blade just touches the wood spacer. I then slide the stop in the rail until it touches the edge of the Accu-Slot table and lock it in place. Now when I remove the spacer and slide the Accu-Slot table forward, it will stop in the correct position, so you will not cut completely through the board and you will not be cutting into the fence. Next, we are ready to position aboard a block of wood that we'll be cutting. It's important that the starting block of wood have equal and parallel sides, and at the ends of the board are perpendicular to the sides. Next, I position the block of wood in the approximate position where I want it to cut, under the clamps and against the stop. The Accu-Path laser beam is ideal for this purpose. In fact, I originally designed the Accu-Path laser beam back in 2017 for use with the Accu-Slot system. I just moved the camera to show the Accu-Path laser beam and how it can be used. So this is the Accu-Path laser beam mounted on the side of the bandsaw blade. It projects the beam right down the teeth of the blade and then parallel to the cut you're going to be making. This enables you to accurately position the wood block for the cuts that we'll be making. This is especially important when cutting multi-angle or intersecting cuts to make sure that all your cuts align and intersect in the middle of the wood block as shown here. I position the wood block where I want to make the cut and then slide the board against the clamp, tighten the clamp in place. Next, you need two clamps to clamp the board in place on the Accu-Slot table. There are three sizes of clamps available for the Accu-Slot system: a straight clamp, a clamp with a 1/4 inch bend, and a clamp with a 1/2 inch bend. These clamps can easily be bent to a different angle if so required. In addition, you can always make your own clamps from some scrap aluminum strips. In addition, you can use nylon spacers if you are slicing a thicker board, which again I've used in this case. There's actually thicker spacers in here. I normally use two clamps, one on each side of the path of the bandsaw blade through the board. Again, it's advantageous to use the Accu-Path laser beam to see the exact path of the laser beam, because you do not want to cut through the aluminum clamps. I like using two clamps because as you're clamping the board in place, you're making a cut. If you clamp just one side and you make a cut, this board can actually move as you're cutting. You know, the wood might have moisture in it and start moving. So by clamping both sides, you can eliminate that movement of the board as it's being cut and just give you more accurate cuts. First, it's important that the board you're cutting be down against the table, against the fence, and against the stop. So you're actually aligning this board in three different locations as you're clamping. In summary, as I'm clamping the board in place, I'm pushing the board down against the table, against the fence, and also against the stop, pushing it in three directions at the same time, and then tightening the clamp in place. This just requires a light finger tight clamping to keep the board from moving. We're now ready to make our first cut on this board. Again, I have my blade in position. I can see my path of my blade so it's not going to hit my clamps, and I have my stop set so that it will not go into the rail. And I'll cut just about 100 thousandths of an inch away from the end of the board. Okay, release my clamps, pull my board out, and there's my board, almost all the way through but not quite through the board. So this is ready now to glue my insert. Now on the back side of the cut there's usually a little bit of a fuzzy, so I'm going to sand that off with some sandpaper. So this is my piece of red heart I just cut, and I can insert that, glue it in place. So what I'm going to do next, I'll cut this piece of wood in half, I'll put some glue on it, glue it in place, let it set for about an hour, sand it flush, and then repeat the process, turning this 90 degrees, and keep doing that until all 4 sides have been cut. So getting the glue in the slot's a little bit tricky, and it can be a little bit messy at times. So what I tend to do is put some glue into the slot. And I have another piece of wood which is actually a hair smaller than the slot. And I can push that down in there. In fact, I can actually coat some glue on this, both sides, and push it in. Because you want to try and get glue the whole way down into that slot. Put a little bit of glue on the surface of this also. Both sides. I normally clamp the insert into the block using either a C-clamp or some rubber bands, and then allow the assembly to dry 30 to 60 minutes. After the assembly is dry, I then sand the inserts flush to the wood block on the edge sander. I then repeat the process on the remaining 3 sides of the wood block, cutting the slot, gluing in the red heart insert, and then sanding the insert flush to the sides of the block. Now that's the 4th and final side, so I'll let that dry overnight, and then tomorrow we'll turn it in the lathe to reveal the Celtic pattern. Now here's our block with the 4 inserts, 1 on each side, ready to turn and reveal the Celtic pattern. Well, there's our finished turning, so you see the Celtic pattern. So I'll take this thing and make a little goblet out of this. So this will be the top and this will be the base. So let me turn a spigot in the bottom here so I can put it in a chuck, and then we'll finish turning it. Okay, after finishing the contouring and sanding down to 400 grit sandpaper, that's the result. And I did hollow out the inside also. It's quite important that the wood insert that's going to go in the kerf slot that you created in the wood block be the exact thickness of this slot in the wood board. If this board is too thin, then this is going to collapse and you're not going to have a parallel side. Likewise, if it's too thick, it's going to spread apart and you're not going to have a parallel side. So you want to keep these sides parallel so you get nice clean cuts when you make the successive cuts on the Accu-Slot system. So I want to get this board to be around 45 thousandths. This is a 1/2 inch blade on here. I know my kerf on a 1/2 inch blade is between 45 and 50 thousandths. And my kerf is, the similar between 45 and 50 thousandths. So I just cut off my first board here. I set my gauge to 0. I cut off my first board to give me a flat surface. And now I'll go and release my mag jigs. I'll advance this 45 thousandths for the kerf of the blade, another 45 thousandths, and we'll see how that works out. So that'll be 45 thousandths, and then that will be another 45 thousandths, taking it to 90. So I'll cut that piece, and then we'll see what the size is, see if it's too small or too large, and then I'll adjust it accordingly. Well, let me measure this piece of wood and see what it measures out at. And it's right around 40 thousandths, probably a little too thin. It's got to be a little bit thicker, so I need to make a little bit thicker piece of wood. Here's another trick. Rather than have to keep doing the math on this all the time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the mag jigs locked. I'm going to loosen the rough course adjustment knobs and take this to 0. Lock my course adjustment knobs, release my mag jig clamps, and I'm going to take just one full turn, which is 50 thousandths, and then taking it to 45, I'll take it to 44 thousandths. And that measures like 44.5 thousandths. 44.5 thousandths. And that's perfect. So I finished cutting the thin boards for the Celtic inserts using the same process. Using that technique, every one of those boards came out between 44 and 45 thousandths inch thick. Amazing how accurate those are. This is the finished goblet with a Celtic Ring pattern that was created in this video using the Accu-Slot system. The base wood of the goblet is poplar, and the thin wood inserts are the red heart inserts that we sliced on the Accu-Slice system. Also on our website are several other videos describing how the Accu-Slot system was developed. These videos also demonstrate the operation of the Accu-Slot system to produce several other Celtic Ring projects. The video gallery on our website displays many of the projects that were completed with the Accu-Slot system. A wide variety of Celtic Ring designs and patterns can be created with the Accu-Slot system. By incorporating different numbers of Celtic rings in the project, varying the angles of the rings, and using different varieties of wood species and laminated boards for the inserts, the number and variety of Celtic Ring design possibilities is infinite. A number of these Celtic Ring projects are described in another YouTube video on our website. The link to this video is listed below in the description section of this video. If you have any questions or comments on this video, please post your comments to this video below, or give us a call or drop us an email. We look forward to your comments and input. And once again, thank you for watching this video.